Friday. It's Friday. I like Fridays. What are you guys doing this weekend?
Trying to get caught up on everything I missed Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
Because it suddenly became Friday.
Pizza Wednesday?
I think it's the 6th.
7th.
Friday,
Seven.
June 7th.
Oh. Yeah, that's right. So today's Friday. It's June 7th, and it's 15 years after we started the business. Mark Coors and I started it in 2004. I actually remember going to dinner with Emily and Mark Coors and my wife and my dad, who my dad helped us start the business because he was a CPA, and he kind of saw the market, he saw some potential, I described it to him, and he helped convince Mark and I's spouses that this was a good thing, and there's market potential here, and he could help us along the way. And then August of the same year, so August of 2004, he goes and gets a brain tumor and passes away 6 months later. I laugh about it because it was just ridiculous that he was instrumental in helping us start our business. And then within 6 months, he went to a better place, which was very sad. So there's many times during the time I started the business, I was like, okay, Dad, you help me get into this. How do I get myself out of this situation right here? Because it's kind of complex. So thanks to Dad for helping us get started. He helped instigate our efforts and got us set up as an S corporation and got our paperwork all right when we started with the state of Indiana, Secretary of State, all that stuff. But we're here at Oscar's Pizza, which is the best pizza in town.
You heard it here.
Qualifier outside of town.
It's true.
I like Oscar's. It's great.
I'm
The dough is nice and chewy. Toppings are great. There's some other good pizzas in town. I mean, I think I like Pizza Junkies and Stoney's, but Oscar's I think is. If I'm picking one, I'm picking Oscar's.
It looks like Oscar's pizza hat is on Nick's hat.
I do want to start off some of this conversation and say thanks to many people who helped get us started with Andy Mark. One of the things that we started was there was a really good thread on Chief Delphi. If you look up andymark.biz, it really debated the whole entire idea of starting a business like this because we were the first of our kind. No one else. There wasn't Rev, there wasn't Cross the Road, there wasn't even Vex Pro when we started. So the concept of having these off-the-shelf items was debatable, whether or not we should do it. And some people were thinking, well, if you do that, you're going to play favorites to the teams that you know. And we tried our best not to. I see him almost every year at some Michigan event, but I saw in Detroit this year, I saw John Stofflet, lead teacher on 123, who was our first customer. He was the first person to buy products from us, customer number one. So that was a big deal. And when I see him, I said, hey, there's the number one customer right there. I think early on there were a lot of people that helped us out, and John was kind of representative of those first year customers. I think back then we sold maybe to 20%, 25% of the teams that first year in 2005, and I think our percentage of content with teams have gone up over the years. I have a list of all our customers the first year.
My team was on it.
And here they are.
Okay, I can look that up. So during a town hall meeting, I think in Michigan, we debated the kit of parts and what teams we're going to start with. And one of the results of that was Paul Copioli saying, I will design a gearbox for the kit of parts that's a good gearbox. And then other people said, I'll help with a new sheet metal kit of parts chassis. So that whole process started. Paul created a design. I asked if I could help him critique the design, because he and I worked on a lot of things together. And Mark and I were starting this company, Andy Mark, at the same time. Coors actually found the source and the design for the aluminum housing. I worked on the gears, and we were the supplier for 3 of the gears inside of the kit of parts gearbox for the 2005 gearbox. Alan Ng and Tika Mana.
Mm-hmm. There's only one CNC machine on the island.
That's the conversation with Alan Ng. I think in the summer of 2003, I was shopping around the idea. Actually, I think took to one of the first forums. I took a sample of the AM shifter And I said, who wants to buy this thing, and how much would you pay for it? So Alan Ing from 368, awesome people on Oahu, they liked our gearboxes that the Technocats were putting out as design examples after the season was done. They said, we like this, but we want to be able to build it. We don't have any CNC capability here on the island except for Pearl Harbor, and we don't have reliable sourcing from there. It just depends on if the machines are available or not. Can you just sell us this gearbox, this shifting gearbox? And we said, oh, that's an idea. Okay. So we thought about that and eventually came up with the business plan to sell a shifting gearbox and a planetary gearbox that could be mounted wherever the sim was mounted. That was a big deal too. The AM Planetary was the predecessor to all the other planetary gearboxes that mount where sim motors mount, which we still have some on the shelf for a very low price.
5 more. Last 5 ever built.
So I don't want this to be just me talking, but there's other stories. What stories do you guys have?
Were you small parts days?
Oh yeah. Yep. Small parts, McMaster, local machine shops.
Calling places on the phone.
Oh god.
Sprocket. That was never me. We CNC'd our own plate sprockets towards the end of my time on the team.
We drove to the Martin Sprocket warehouse, and they would feel bad for us, so they would give us free parts. I should rephrase. They supported the program, free sprockets, in response for us listing them as a sponsor.
Nice.
In 2005, there was nobody that had aluminum sprockets, except the go-kart market. The go-kart market, you would find a aluminum sprocket, and you would actually buy like a 62 sprocket. They were only big ones, nothing small, because it had to go around the hub of the go-kart wheel. And these they built them in 2 halves.
Yep.
So you could take it on and off the wheel like this without having to take the wheel off.
Sorry.
But you had to make sure the alignment of that part was good. But yeah, there was nobody else that had aluminum sprockets. So we started making aluminum sprockets, and it was popular.
Our cast sprockets disassembled themselves into halves.
And thirds and bits. You sure those free sprockets weren't like QC rejects?
No, they were just cast, and we're not a team that did a lot of mathematical calculations of force of chain on sprocket teeth and lever arm holding tetra. So, yeah,
Were they cast steel or cast aluminum?
they're cast steel,
Oh.
and so we would drill
Cast
holes.
iron.
We would drill holes in them because they were too heavy.
We made our own 190 tooth sprocket in 05. Why? Because like Liz said, lever arm.
Tetras are heavy, man.
Each Tetra weighed, what, the Vision Tetra I think was over 8 pounds. Closer
Yeah.
to 10 or 12, and
Yeah.
the Tetras themselves I think were 8.
I remember
And
testing
if-
our arm with 2 batteries. Things have moved so much. One of our first robots, we had a pair of DeWalt drill motors and the drill gearbox, but because they ran so much faster in what the drill calls forward than reverse,
Yep.
we had both motor gearboxes mounted in the same direction on the robot, and one wheel basically driven internal backwards so that both motors could go forwards.
Right.
So both output shafts were facing like the right side of the robot, because that was important back then. The robots had so little power that those variances mattered. And now we have
I think we just
4 redline
accounted for
drivetrains.
that.
From 05 to 08, we were really just focused on mechanical stuff. We had sprockets, we had shifting gearboxes, we had the AM Planetary, we had the Tough Box, and then we also had the electrical product, the one electrical product, which was the battery cable. The big problem before 2005 was just people just not crimping their lugs right on a battery cable, so we needed to have a solution. Oh, we also sold Omni wheels and Mecanum wheels. Summer 2008, we got a phone call from First that said, "This is confidential. We're glad you signed this NDA, but next year, everybody's going to have to run on the same wheel." So we had traction wheels, Omni wheels, Mecanum wheels, but none of those wheels are going to be used on any FRC robots this next year because everybody's going to be mandated to use the same, what became the slick wheel in 2009 when we drove around on the Regolith. That was a big oh crap moment because we had all this revenue earmarked from Mecanum wheels, Omni wheels, and traction wheels. It's like, where are we going to replace this revenue from? So we went out and really looked at trying to be a distributor for more electrical products. So that was also the same, was that the first year of the C-Rio?
2009 was the first year.
So we started being the distributor for the components that supported the C-Rio, the blue plastic housed supplemental components there. And also we added some sensors and those kind of things. So we really worked hard at becoming the distributor of electrical parts, like the driver station. So that was the first year that we really focused on becoming a distributor for other people's stuff. I think I counted up 11 different companies. We helped them become parts providers in this market. Believe it or not, West Coast Products and Rev started selling through us. IR3 across the road. E-Stop Robotics. Modulus, not Modulox, Modulus. Even some teams like 2468 Appreciate developed the string pot and they sold it through us after a business agreement that we had with them.
In 1720? With the
Yeah, Robots. 221 was another one. We were the storefront that many teams went to, Amazon.com of FRC. So we had a really good setup for distribution even as early as 2009, and people started coming to us to market their stuff through. Even though now teams have more options because of the competition that has taken place between us, VexPro, also Rev, and Pitsco, other people. I think even though that's sometimes hard on us as a company to deal with competition, the end user, the students and the teens benefit from all that. So it makes it easier for the whole market to grow. So our slice of a pie, which is the whole market, hopefully will get bigger, even as the market gets bigger.
Is it true you started the company in your garage?
Yes, so we worked out of our houses for 3 years. Mark's basement stored parts and was housing some testing, and then we actually assembled and shipped out of my house. So we would do final assembly. We would do a lot of mechanical plate pressing in my garage with a hand pumped hydraulic presser.
Like one tab at a time, or like?
No, the whole thing. We had 2 dies, and so this is actually an interesting story. Coors designed the Mecanum wheel before we started AndyMark. He actually designed an 8-inch Mecanum wheel for Technocats to use because he thought it was cool.
Sounds like Coors.
Yeah.
Wheels are cool.
Yeah.
After the guys on 357 introduced it to all of First, so we took their inspiration, designed a version of it with the side plates that were different than everybody else's. Somehow got an apprentice at Delphi to make the 2 dies to stamp 1 plate before we started AndyMark. And they sat on the shelf for about a year and did nothing. And then I negotiated the purchasing of those 2 dies. So as a Delphi employee, I bought the 2 dies. Me and one of the guys there, who was a manager, walked them out. I think we got somebody to sign off on this, but I actually paid Delphi a check, walked these things out the door, put them in my car, took them home. And within about a few months, I took those 2 dies, and we started making stamped 8-inch Mecanum plates in my garage. But then we started making so many of them that I needed someone to put it on their automatic hydraulic press. And the person at the time that was making parts for us, who since left Delphi and started his own machine shop, was the same guy that was the apprentice that made the dies in the first place.
Oh, that's super cool. I did not know that story.
I just forgot. There was a time in my garage also I was paying my little sister to stamp these plates. And I said, you just put 1 plate at a time, you got to fit it over the pins, and you just crank this pump for about until you can't crank it anymore. That's when you stop. It was so janky. So and it probably took 3 or 4 minutes to make 1 stamping. And I said, Ashley, do not put more than 1 plate in there. Don't try to save time by putting more plate in there. And so I think she sent me a voicemail or something that says, what happens when you put more than 1 in? Because you told me not to do this, but
I did it.
I did it because I was tired of this going so slow. And so we had to it broke some pins, and we had to redo some of the tooling.
Oh wow! So if you bought
Anniversary.
an AM shifter between 2005 2008, it was probably assembled on your dining room table.
No, not quite. It was assembled in Isabel's bedroom.
Even better.
And I can't find the darn thing, but I have a picture of the assembly table. And back then it was my computer. It was my office, and then Isabel moved in there eventually. But Mary tells this story pretty well. I would assemble them, and we were in a hurry to get these out the door. I would assemble them and put a motor on it. And Mary would take him into the kitchen. We had a power supply on the countertop.
You got to do the run-in.
And we were doing the run-in, and I would listen for the run-in. I'd say, "Yeah, that's right," without even looking at it, because you could
Yep.
hear the run-in.
Tell.
And then she would bring it back, and then the next one she would have a knock, like tuk, tuk, tuk,
Yep.
tuk, tuk. So I'll bring that one back. There's a burr in the gear. I got to file the burr. So I would hand file the burrs out of the gears.
A little driller's file.
And then I had two nephews that were on Technocats that also did that job.
I remember when you moved into Inventrek and I came over in the summer. You were like hugely happy about showing off your area because you just moved in.
Yeah. So you were there summer of seven?
Yep, and that's when I did shifter shaft assemblies for you. Did 100 of them at my house. Still have the brass hammer sitting at home.
That's where that
Stole.
went.
No, it was mine. I bought that hammer. I bought that hammer for that. No, it's a brand new hammer. It's only used in my house. Because I bought a brand new one. I did
Built 100
steal thread locker from you to be able to do it. So I still have the tube of thread locker.
That's
I bet you it's still useful.
Probably.
One thing that was interesting over the years was our involvement with FTC. So we got involved, I know it was before 2011 because we were selling FTC field perimeters in either 09 or 2010. That was our first effort of getting into FTC. We started selling soft tiles and perimeters back in I think 10. Was it 9?
It was right before I got there because the first part number when I was there was 666.
So 481
'Cause that was-
would be
That's
before
the Kiwi drive, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we started with FTC, I think, in 2010. We started by selling field perimeters, and was that right before you came?
Yeah, it should have been spring then. Or that's early spring, sometime spring, because that was started in August. 2010, so.
Maybe it was 09 then. I don't know. But I think we're on our 4th iteration of the FTC field perimeter. We started with FTC field perimeters, and then I think the next thing we did was we were their distributor for the racquetballs. We had to have a certain exact type of correct racquetball in the 2012 or 2011, 2012 game. What was the name of that game?
Bowled over.
Yeah.
Rolled over?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was before the rings?
That was the year before the rings. So we did racquetballs, then we did rings,
Yep. 11, 12 was bowled over.
We
and
didn't want to do the bowling ball for some reason.
What's that?
We didn't want to do the bowling ball for some reason.
No idea why.
starting in the 2013 year, we actually went to FTC and asked, can we do anything for you to help your program? And they decided to have us make the FTC official game items that people played on. So the first year we did that was Cascade Effect, which was a 2015 game. That was pretty successful. So we've been making the game objects and the game structured items on the field for FTC as the official place to go for those parts ever since. Before Cascade Effect, you FTC teams, if you didn't know this, every team had to make their own ramps and towers and those kinds of things by following a instruction from FTC. So if you didn't have somebody on your team that was a pretty decent carpenter or builder, you were kind of out of luck. You didn't have a place to go get field objects to play on before 15.
I remember it was always interesting in competitions because as a head referee, I had to make sure that the fields were actually built to the same dimensions.
Yeah.
Because we had that happen all the time where you would get Team A and Team B bringing their independent field objects to the event to run the competition, and if your fields didn't match, you had issues. So
The first year of First Choice was really only about the Pitsco Minibot.
Yeah.
I think that was what they called First Choice back then.
So the one that I remember starting, Brant did it, pretty much handled all of it, and it was like 4 different options you could pick on our website. And it was like this kit, this kit, this kit, or this kit. Take one.
Was
I
it?
don't remember it just being Pisco.
Was it the Pitsco stuff? And so that was 11. That was for Logo Motion when they climbed the tower.
Yeah.
Wasn't that their first?
So it might have been they might have kicked off first choice, but I don't think it was officially called first choice.
It wasn't. Okay.
It might have been the idea that turned into first choice.
Yeah, I think that maybe that's what their test was to see if it would work.
Is Andy Mark always going to be the name?
No. I think one of the names was Kabam. KBAM. It was Coors Baker, Andy, Mark. Kabam. Kabam.
Andy, you're from Kabam.
Yeah, that-
There's so many branding opportunities.
I'm actually really disappointed.
That could have been our shirt.
Kabam.
You ever get logos made for Kabam?
No. KBAM. Kabam. Early on, before I asked Mark, and he said, actually, I asked two different people, and Mark said, yeah. And before that, I was thinking just Baker gearboxes, because I was only looking at shifters and planetaries. And Baker gearboxes, I had that domain for a while.
Kabam.org is going for $2,500 plus $12 a
What
year.
a great investment.
Did you guys ever hear about the story that we switched from .biz to .com?
No, never heard the story.
Which story?
Jared's like, there's something.
Just so we were .biz for many years because AndyMark.com was just a website that some guy had.
Oh, the musician.
Was it?
Yeah, because he's on Facebook. He was on Twitter. The whole reason we're Andy Mark Inc. everywhere is because of him.
So
Not just Andy Mark.
I think he's from Philadelphia or something like that.
That explains it.
And so
Should drive over there.
So AndyMark.com was already taken by some guy. You know, he was tired of his MySpace page or something like that. I don't know. But so we got .biz. The first website developer was David Kelly down in Indianapolis. So he's about 50 or 60 miles from here. I was on a dial-up still at the time, and in order to put pictures on the website, I would actually mail him a CD-ROM with pictures on the CD-ROM in the mail. I would put it in the post office, not an email. But through the post office, I would mail him the CD-ROM. He would put those pictures up, and those are the pictures that
With the red background.
the red backgrounds and
With
and
the penny, maybe?
or the concrete, yeah, the penny or the concrete on the floor. But we were .biz, and then I don't think we reached out to him at all. I think like 3 or 4 years later. I don't know when were you?
That part I missed. I didn't know that part. I didn't know when you got AndyMark.com.
Say, that was before-
You had it by the time I got
Okay,
to it.
so before we got to him,
You
we
didn't have it for a reason.
he
to begin with.
he came to us and said, "Hey, I noticed you have this company, AndyMark. Do you want to buy .com?" And I said, "Oh, maybe." And then the negotiation started, and I think we paid all of $900 for .com. That's what we paid. I think now it's good. I don't know where he's at.
Too bad he didn't get Mark Andy. Could have been called Andy Mark, and you have to go to Mark Andy.
Mark Andy is another company.
Uh-huh.
Our first product, AM-0001, is the AM shifter, and that was a derivation after 2 years of iteration from Technocats, when we had, and I think in 2002, we had a dog shifter. In 2003, it was a more refined dog shifter. It got a lot smaller, the dog did. And then 2004, we started the AM shifter, and we sold it in the fall of 2004. John's team bought 4 of them, other teams bought some. But then it became the super shifter because it was super. We actually had a logo design contest, and Andy Burkhart won that contest. I think that's when we unveiled the Shift Happens t-shirts, which was kind of ridiculous. And then we have the Sonic shifter, which was, I don't know what year that was, but that
2013 championship debut.
Sonic shifter almost was named Taylor Shift. That was the one that was close to be named Taylor Shift. And then it became the Evo shifter. And then the Evo would be 4th iteration within AndyMark. I think I would call it the 6th iteration total of the shifter.
The Sonic shifter moved the upper shaft to the center, and
That's
I think the Sonic shifter also was the one that put the, I could be wrong on this, you'll probably know this, put the first cluster gear between the 2 cluster gears for the shift stage.
Only
Whereas
in
the super
certain,
shifter did not do that.
only in certain ratios.
Right. I'm pretty sure the super shifter you couldn't do
Yeah.
that.
The Sonic shifter was our answer to people who complained that the super shifter wasn't a mirror image of itself.
Right.
And so they really wanted that to be centered, the shaft to be centered in the shifter, which I was like, really?
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I forgot how big of a deal that was.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
that was one of the flagship marketed items. Centered output shaft. Like, that was
Yeah.
monumental, greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and Danny's like, back in my day, our shafts pointed the same direction.
We did a bunch of repackaging of Super Shifter parts in the 2013 season, and that gearbox was the one that I mentored the team I was working with. That gearbox is what kind of started the conversation and sort of opened the door to me getting a job at Andy Mark.
We had a controls engineering position that was open for a while, and actually talked to a few people that you guys know pretty well about getting that position. And I'm gonna call Jerry, even though he just got married. This is like Monday or Tuesday. He just got married the prior Saturday.
That's what he thought. Like, well, you thought it was a week and a day. It was 2 days.
Yeah. So I was
Happy wedding present.
at lunch. I was at lunch somewhere, and I said, I'm gonna call him. Well, like this. I'm like,
Nicole's reaction was the best. What? We just got married. How do you get a new job?
Surprise.
one of the challenges about districts.
The tier rings down.
One of the challenges about district events for FRC, or not district events, but district management with FRC, is handling the pods units, or handling the fields, and transporting them around from place to place. I'm sure places like First in Texas have a really big challenge of transporting things around. So it's as big as entire countries down there, with New Mexico involved. Pacific Northwest has a large space to cover. Thankfully, here in Indiana, we have a pretty small space to cover, relatively small. But we at Andy Moore store the FRC field elements for Indiana First, the game related stuff, and also the AV stuff, even plates and forks and office stuff that goes with FRC events here in Indiana.
So we were
And-
talking about, actually, the other day, I forget who was talking about how some of the areas that we've historically done in off-season we've kind of helped to launch those areas into districts by slowly kind of weaning them off of requiring us for off-seasons by, we used to come down and run their event and provide a field, and especially like Texas, right? They kinda
Chesapeake as well.
learned from how we did some of the stuff and are now kind of on their own in Chesapeake and Virginia area, same with them. And
Well, Michigan early on.
Ohio. Yeah,
Ohio's on their way.
kind of training them how to run events and being kind of a community help for that.
I miss traveling to those events. That was fun. I remember the one event a few years ago we went to, I think it was the event in Newport News, that it was like early November and it was 75 degrees there. So we stayed an extra day and went to the beach. It was awesome.
Well, that's why our one truck is named
Yeah,
Sandy.
so that's when Sandy was born.
It's actual sand.
Yeah, all over.
Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for you, those of you who have been with us for 15 years. Thank you so much. You've together we've done some pretty cool things, and we hope to be around another 15 years at least. So stick with us, and let's do great things. Have a great weekend. Be safe, and happy anniversary.